I have to say, man, I am constantly in awe at the hypocrisy of the right. So one of the things they've been talking about endlessly, of course, is Hunter Biden and his business dealings. And look, to be fair, I think that stuff is legit. I don't think the stuff about the drug use and the sex addiction and all that, I don't think that's fair. You know, whatever, he's got problems. Who gives a fuck? He's not a politician. That part doesn't matter, right? The corruption stuff, the sketchy business dealings, that matters, especially insofar as you can connect it to Joe Biden as much as he's involved, right? The Burisma stuff, we've all been through this a million times, but the right laser focuses on that issue. And they act like this sort of corruption is unique to Hunter, to Joe Biden, to Democrats, and they just totally pretend like Trump is not an even bigger offender at the same thing. Well, guess what? A new report just came out. Look at this. Trump received at least $7.8 million in foreign payments during his presidency. $7.8 million. And by the way, we are just getting warmed up with that number. So buckle up, sit back, and relax. A report from Democrats on the House Oversight Committee released Thursday accused former President Trump of receiving at least $7.8 million in foreign payments to his properties during his presidency. It's the most solid figure to date on the scope and scale of Trump's private windfall from foreign sources, which Democrats allege is a clear-cut violation of the Constitution's Emoluments Clause. The 156-page report, titled White House for Sale, How Princes, Prime Ministers, and Premiers Paid Off President Trump, draws on documents from Trump's accounting firm, Mazars, obtained after years of high-profile court battles. It lays out foreign payments to 4 Trump properties, 2 in New York, 1 in Washington, D.C., and 1 in Las Vegas, from at least 20 foreign governments or government-owned entities, including China. That's what they beat up on Hunter and Joe for, taking money from China. Saudi Arabia, no shock there. Malaysia, Kosovo, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Quote, President Trump never sought or received Congress's approval to keep these foreign payments as the Constitution requires, the report says, also drawing links between the payments and Trump's policy decisions. A spokesperson for Trump did not immediately respond to a request for comment. By far, the largest chunk of the $7.8 million came from China, which spent nearly $5.6 million at Trump Tower in New York and Trump International Hotels in Washington, D.C. and Las Vegas. Another $615,000 came from Saudi Arabia. More on them in a minute, by the way, because it's way more than that. $466,000 from Qatar, $303,000 from Kuwait, $283,000 from India, $249,000 from Malaysia, $155,000 from Afghanistan, $75,000 from the Philippines, and $65,000 from the UAE. Quote, it's beyond parody that Democrats continue their obsession with former President Trump, Oversight Committee Chair James Comer said in a statement. I love this. Presented with ironclad evidence of foreign government payments to Trump as president. He's like, bro, you're obsessed and stuff, bro. Why are you so obsessed? I don't know, maybe because he was president and he's the front runner for being president again and he's attacking the other side for corruption. Quote, former President Trump has legitimate businesses, but the Bidens do not, he alleged. Well, hold on now. We were told early on in Trump's time in office, he's stepping down from his businesses and he's putting his businesses in a blind trust. And so he's going to have no business dealings whatsoever as president. None, zero. And in fact, they go out there, one of the things they say all the time is, Donald Trump lost money as president. The first president to ever lose money in the office. Okay, well, that's not true. And also, it wasn't true that there was a blind trust and he wasn't doing any business dealings. That is 100% factually false, and they are not engaging on the facts of that. Quote, the Bidens and their associates made over $24 million by cashing in on the Biden name in China, Russia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, and Romania. No goods or services were provided other than access. The $7.8 million figure, the report says, is based on a small slice of the Mazars, I'm never going to pronounce that name right, documents, and is likely only a small fraction of the total amount of such payments he received during his presidency. Quote, let me repeat that. Likely only a small fraction of the total amount of such payments he received during his presidency. Comer released Mazars from its obligation to turn over the documents after taking power in January. Oh, wow, so he's trying to hide the Trump corruption but expose the Biden corruption. Weird. The 4 properties comprised just 1% of the businesses Trump owned when he was president, the report says. The committee did not receive from Mazars any documents regarding at least 80% of Donald Trump's business entities, the report says. For many other entities, Mazars produced only a single document. But it adds, this figure in itself is a scandal and a decisive spur to action. Representative Jamie Raskin, ranking member of the committee, previewed plans for a package of legislative reforms to ensure that all occupants of the Oval Office abide by the Constitution's unequivocal language commanding loyalty to the interests of the American people. Okay, so now remember I said, look, these numbers are minor league stuff. We're just getting started here. Well, in stepped Jared Kushner. Now, you all know the details and the specifics of this story, but let me refresh your memory. So how much money did Jared Kushner take from the Saudis and others? Listen to this.
Jared Kushner did work in the White House. He worked very hard. It's becoming a little less clear what he actually worked hard at, because after he left the White House, he went out and raised $3.1 billion, that's billion with a B, for a private equity fund. And as you pointed out, he's not a private equity guy. He's a real estate guy. So where did this money come from? Some of it we know from filing. Some of it we know from press reports. What we know for a fact is he raised the $3.1 billion. What we also know for a fact is that only about $30 million of it actually came from investors in the United States.
Only $30 million of $3.1 billion came from the U.S.
All the rest of it is foreign money. And of that foreign money, $2 billion of it came from the Saudis. And not only did it come from the Saudis, but the Public Investment Fund, which is the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund, from which this money came, the board of it voted against giving the money to Jared, and they were overruled by MBS, who said, give him the $2 billion.
I'm sure that was totally pure and legitimate and fair, and it wasn't at all some sort of backroom corrupt deal. Now, by the way, what are other pieces of evidence that come along with this? Well, we already know what happened when Jamal Khashoggi, a Washington Post American journalist, was caught by the Saudis. He was writing critical stories on them. Then what did they do? They chopped him up into little bits and pieces. And the Trump administration didn't even give Saudi Arabia a slap on the wrist, never mind any real consequences or accountability or justice for what happened. Remember that? There were also articles that Jared Kushner allegedly showed top secret and classified information to MBS, and then that led to his crackdown on his own domestic dissidents. Remember that, when he was like holding them up in a hotel? Remember that? That could have come directly from Jared Kushner, directly from the Trump administration, because they knew, hey, you do this for me now, I'll make it worth your while later. He personally intervened to say, give the $2 billion to Jared Kushner. $2 billion. By the way, and then we're not even talking about the rest of the money on the screen here. He got $200 million from Qatar, $200 million from the UAE. Gee, I wonder if there were backroom deals made, which then led to them giving him that money. Now remember, you want to talk about Hunter Biden. Well, first of all, Hunter Biden was never in a government position. But look, I'm fine with talking about Hunter Biden. I have no problem with that whatsoever. But Jared Kushner's situation is literally worse because it's more money and he held an official government position. The right doesn't talk about that at all, pretends it doesn't exist, but they want to beat up on Hunter all day, every day, and look at more cock pictures.
In this business 40 years, I have never seen someone get $2 billion out of $3 billion, get 2/3 of their money from a single investor. Usually a single investor might be a few percent of the fund, might be 5%, occasionally 10%. Never seen this. Another $200 million we believe came from Qatar. Another $200 million we believe came from the UAE. And then the $625 million that came from foreign investors that we don't even know who they are. So what was Jared Kushner doing in the White House? And by the way, as a fun fact, on January 6th, the famous January 6th, Jared Kushner was in the Middle East.
Now, by the way, I mentioned the Saudis in regards to Trump. The dollar figure they have there for him is not even $1 million. But guess what? We know Trump agreed with the Saudis to host their live golf event. See, Saudi Arabia did a coup of professional golf. They're effectively trying to put the PGA Tour out of business and take over all of professional golf. And they made a deal with Trump where they're going to host these events at many of his courses. So how many millions and millions of dollars did they give him for that? And by the way, with this guy leading the race to get back in the White House, who does he owe favors to? We already know. He owes favors to all of these governments that are throwing money at him endlessly. And he will deliver those favors because that's what he does. That's what a corrupt businessman does. So look, I'll end on this point. I have no problem at all. You want to investigate Joe Biden, you want to investigate Hunter Biden, you want to talk about the corruption, you want to prove the corruption, you want to take action legally or otherwise. I'm here for it. But if you open Pandora's box, which you should, rules are rules. They got to apply across the board, evenly, fairly. And all this stuff you're throwing at the Bidens applies to the Trumps times 1,000, because they're even bigger corrupt offenders. So, but my guess is you won't hear much about this $7.8 million corrupt scheme, which is just the tip of the iceberg, not even all of it. You won't hear about that on Fox News. You won't hear any Republicans talking about it. They'll pretend like it doesn't exist. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.